Like a grand and miraculous spaceship, our planet has sailed through the universe of time.
Like a grand and miraculous spaceship.
Grand and miraculous.
Grand and miraculous.
I think with the Muppets, there's sort of an innocence to them, you know? Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that appeals to the child in everybody. Because I think everybody is a child in everybody still.
Well, we all want to build a time machine, Doc. So when you enter Disneyland, you're entering a time machine.
I only hope that we never lose sight of one thing, that it was all started by a mouse.
Well, hello everybody. Hope you're doing great. Welcome to Grand and Miraculous. This is episode 24. It's hard to believe I'm saying that. I'm sure I'll say that forever and ever. But anyway, I want to welcome you to tonight's episode. Tonight's a special one. We're going to do something a little bit different tonight. So let me know what you think about it. We're going to have a slightly different format and talk about a unique subject. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope you learn something. And of course, feel free to drop a comment after the show or in chat or wherever you want to let me know what you think about this format. Let me pop over to chat, and I want to say hello to some very special people. Miss Debbie Bernfeld, thank you for being here, Debbie. You are amazing. Lamont Gray, hey, you've been here since the very beginning. I'm so grateful for you, my friend. Hope you're doing great. Let's see, scroll. Mattercam Matt is in the house. Hey, Matt, hope you're doing great. Thanks for being here. Scroll. Miss K Bell. Hello, Miss K. Hope you're doing fantastic. I saw Dad pop his head in there too. Hello, Pops. Miss K, Oodalolly Lane. K. Sorry, I just said K. Miss Kate, Oodalolly Lane. Hope you're doing great. I'm going to pay for that later. Let's see. Who else is in the house? Julie is in the house. Hey, Julie. And I saw Beaker and Honeydew. Big supporters from the very beginning. Thank you for being here. I saw Karen in the house and Miss Monorail Molly. Hello, Jen. Hope you're doing great. Thanks for all your support. And Karen Cook is in the house. Hey, Karen. Hope you're doing fantastic. I know you all are, I think it's 11 days or so till the big event in Florida. Wish I could make it. I took too many vacation days off this year, but I hope you all have a great time. So tonight we're going to do something a little bit different. First and foremost, I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Last week was great for me. I was able to fly down south to LA and hang out with my dad and Miss Kay, who are in the chat tonight. And we had a great week. While I was down there, we talked about the show a little bit, talked about some potential topics. And I floated, I got to get back and do a new show. What should we do it on? There are so many attractions to cover, right? And we do have many attractions to cover. Hat tip to Dad. He came up with an interesting idea. He said, let's mix it up a little bit and start talking about themes. So in this particular case, we're going to cover the Disney castles. And I thought, that's a great idea. but I was a little bit worried because I thought, well, how much can you talk about the castles, for example? Well, it turns out quite a bit. There's a ton of history behind these structures, and I easily filled up about 40 to 50 slides tonight. So I hope you enjoy it tonight. Hope you learn something and take something away from it. So again, let me know what you think about the format. We're going to do things slightly differently tonight. But as always, I like to start off with our mission statement. What are we doing here? What's the purpose? The idea behind this show is to unveil the magic behind all these theme park attractions that we know and love, explore their creators, their immersive worlds, and the moments that keep us coming back, especially with your voice shaping the journey. As always, I like to start off with some interesting trivia, and tonight is a little bit of a more advanced one. It's not an e-ticket one. So we're going to talk about all the various Disney castles tonight, and you'll learn in great detail about which Imagineers worked on which. However, there is one Disney castle that everybody thinks Herb Ryman designed, but it was designed by Ted Rich. He was a longtime colleague of Herb Ryman, and despite Ryman's concept sketches being very famous and very widely published. So which castle do you think that one is? You could drop it in chat, and we'll see what your guesses are at the end. I also definitely want to encourage you to contribute to chat. Go into chat and share your memories. In particular, I'd like to seed a question. Which castle was it that you actually physically saw first? Everybody has a different story. Of course, me growing up in LA, it was Sleeping Beauty's castle. But I remember the day I saw Cinderella Castle in Florida for the first time. I said, whoa, boy, that's a much bigger castle than what we're used to. And I know our Florida friends have the exact opposite reaction. They say, oh, that's a tiny little castle. But each of them have their own character. And especially the ones overseas, we don't know much about because we haven't been over there, but they have some amazing stories too. So we'll talk about all that tonight. We are not going to vote tonight because we're not talking about an attraction. So I will not be guiding you specifically to the website, but I'd like to encourage you to go anyway. Go to grandmiraculous.com. You can see all the ratings and votes for our previous episodes. Let me pop over to chat and see if anybody else has popped in. I think that covers it. If I missed you, let me know, and I will definitely say hello as we go along. So let's get started a little bit, huh? Let's have some fun. So we're going to be talking about castles today. By the way, might I mention episode 24? Those of you who have been here from the beginning, we're going on a full day of me ranting and raving and talking about these wonderful attractions. So I'm deeply grateful that you all have been along with me for the journey, and I look forward to the next 24. So just so you know, we talk about attractions, theme park goodies, all kinds of stuff on this show. Typically, we talk about attractions. And when we do so, what I like to do is to take it a little bit of a more objective route. Anybody will have 5 different opinions about any given attraction. So we tried to tease these apart using very objective metrics. For example, immersion, storytelling, delight. Again, we won't be doing that tonight, but you can go on the website, grandmiraculous.com, and you can see how these different ratings or votes have turned out. And I think it's pretty interesting how different attractions have ended up differently on the leaderboard. So again, this is not a monologue. Please go on to chat. Please contribute your thoughts. I'd love to hear your opinion. Like I mentioned tonight, we're not actually voting tonight, so I put a red X on there, but please do go to the website, grandmiraculous.com, and check things out. And I see some lovely people pop into chat. Miss Dame Dystopia. Hello, Dame. Hope you're doing fantastic. Thanks for popping in. And Neil, Alyssa and Neil Disney family. Hope you're doing great. Thanks so much for being here. It means the world to see you guys. I'd like to point out that we're a very proud member of the Disney Streamer Network. DSN. So if you go to dsn.disneystreams.com any time of day, you can go and see interesting people who are streaming, hopefully interesting things. And we are a very proud member of that network. So please go and support them as you can. And as always, this is a labor of love. Please go and support whatever charity, whatever group, heck, whatever streamer tickles your fancy. Just go and support them because we're all here to share the magic. I like the Lake Buena Vista Historical Society. They do a great job preserving these attractions and videos and so forth. By the way, the Retro Magic event that just happened a month or 2 ago started to see some online videos pop up on YouTube. So I'll be creating a playlist of those videos so you can virtually live through Retro Magic. They do a great job at uploading all of their events. So hopefully in the next few days, we'll have all the videos uploaded. All right. Oh, I see Park Bros in the house. Hey, Lawrence, hope you're doing great. I just pitched you guys. Thanks for all the support. And yes, folks, please go and support DSN. All right. Mike Beachman's in the house. Hey, Mike, hope you're doing great. Okay, please keep the chat going. I'd love to see it. And let me know what you think about what we're talking about tonight. So that topic is a very unusual one. Usually we talk about attractions on this show. Tonight we're going to be talking about a theme. And we'll see how this feels, and let me know what your feedback is at the end of the night. The theme tonight are all the various Disney castles. And like I mentioned at the outset, I thought, well, how much can we talk about the castles? We all know and love them, but there's a ton of history behind these things. And we have to first give the lay of the land. Practically every Disney park that's themed after the original Disneyland. Obviously, there are exceptions like California Adventure, Disney Sea, and so forth. They don't have castles in the traditional sense, but most of the parks that are themed after Disneyland have their own castle. And here they are. There are 4, 5, 6, 7 in total. So, of course, the original is Sleeping Beauty Castle in Disneyland. Cinderella Castle, Magic Kingdom. We all know and love those castles, and we'll talk about those in a bit. Overseas, there are also a number of castles that are very interesting. Tokyo Disneyland has their own Cinderella Castle. Disneyland Paris has, and I know Kate wanted me to pronounce this, Le Château de la Belle au Bois Dormant. Hey, how about that? Okay, all those years of French school paid off, Dad. Disneyland Paris has their own castle, which we'll talk about. Hong Kong Disneyland originally started with Sleeping Beauty Castle, just like Disneyland did, but that's the only park that actually replaced their castle. So they have a brand new castle called the Castle of Magical Dreams. And of course, in Shanghai Disneyland, there's Enchanted Storybook Castle. So lots of stories to talk about. Hey, Trish, hope you're doing great. Thanks for popping in. I appreciate seeing you. Okay, as always, we like to talk about the movers and shakers in these worlds. I wish I could personally give a page to every single person who laid a brick on one of these castles, because they're all heroes in my mind, but we can't due to time and so forth. So we have to focus on some key people. And this is one of the most key people, if you haven't heard his name before. Marvin Davis, amazing Imagineer, amazing production designer. He actually, a lot of people hear his name and they think about Mark Davis. No, this is a completely different individual. Marvin Davis was responsible for the master site plans for many of the theme parks, including Epcot and so forth. The reason we're mentioning him tonight was that he was one of the key designers behind Sleeping Beauty Castle in Disneyland. So Marvin Davis is a key mover and shaker. In your mental index card of Imagineers, I swear I want to create like baseball cards for Imagineers. But if you had a baseball card deck of Imagineers, Marvin Davis would have a key position in that deck. Herb Ryman, oh my goodness, how have we not talked about Herbie so much on this show so far? Herbie, it's impossible to understate, or it's possible to overstate how much impact he had on the Disney legend. He was born in 1910. He studied art in Chicago. He designed all kinds of sets at MGM, including Wizard of Oz. He joined Disney in 1938, worked on Fantasia and Dumbo. And he was the one who drew the famous first Disneyland illustration, which I'll show you in a little bit. He was a mentor to my grandfather, and he contributed to every Disney park until 1989. His legacy continues in a very profound way through the foundation called Ryman Arts. Ryman Arts is a foundation that was set up to encourage young people to get into art and to continue his legacy. So we're deeply grateful for all the folks who have worked over there at Ryman Arts. And come to think of them, I should probably add them to the front of our decks, because they deserve every bit of support as anyone else does. Mr. John Hench, we've talked about John Hench quite a bit on this show, and I always love talking about him. I'm not going to go into all the details because we've covered him in many other attractions, but everybody loves his impact. And if you haven't read his book on designing Disney, you should. Dorothea Redmond, we haven't talked about her yet. So she was instrumental in creating Cinderella Castle in Florida. I love highlighting the female Imagineers because they had to break into this industry and they had just as profound an impact as any other Imagineer working there. She was born in LA in 1910, trained in interior design. She worked in Hollywood with movers and shakers like Hitchcock, Chaplin, and others. She joined WDI in 1964, and she transformed the Red Wagon Inn, which was existing at the time, into the Plaza Inn, and she designed interiors for New Orleans Square. She created all kinds of interesting watercolor renderings for the different lands in the park. And she was the one who designed the elaborate murals in Cinderella Castle. Most of you know that when you walk through Cinderella Castle, you see these gorgeous, gorgeous mosaic murals, and we'll talk about those in a bit. She was the one behind those. She retired in 1974 and passed away in 2009, and she's remembered for her extraordinary artistry and placemaking. Fred Yorger is another person. Fred was born in Illinois in 1913, and he studied fine arts in the University of Illinois. In short, Fred was a model maker extraordinaire. He joined Disney in 1959. He worked on Project Little Man, which was an early step towards audio animatronics, and he built all kinds of sets and props for Mary Poppins, 20,000 Leagues, and so forth. He co-founded Disney's original model shop, and he created multiple versions of Sleeping Beauty Castle and lots of different attraction models. And interestingly enough, he became Imagineering's resident rock expert. So anytime you see a rock in the theme parks, he probably had a hand on it, including Jungle Cruise, Big Thunder Mountain, and so forth. Tom Morris, friend of the channel, friend of many people in chat. Tom was at Retro Magic for some of you who were there. And Tom's a great guy, and he has had his hand on so many momentous projects. It's hard to summarize it all here. He has 30 years experience at Disney, and he helped create the original Journey into Imagination. He conceptualized Disney Quest, Rock and Roller Coaster, which has been in the news this week. He designed Sleeping Beauty Castle at Disneyland Paris, and he blended French Renaissance influences with fantasy. He provided overall creative oversight for Hong Kong Disney, and he directed conceptual development for Cars Land, a California adventure. And I noticed there was a typo in there. I'll go fix it. Those of you who can spot it, let me know. Wing Chow, another friend of the family. Wing Chow and my father actually worked pretty closely together during Epcot. In case you haven't heard his name, you should. Wing Chow has been very instrumental and very key in all kinds of projects around the world, especially in Shanghai. And he's the reason we're bringing his name up. He spent 37 years at Disney, overseeing more than $12 billion worth of projects. And he served as EVP of Imagineering and Vice Chairman of Parks and Resorts in Asia Pacific Development. Amazing, amazing man. Please go read up on him if you haven't. And he's a key person. Maybe one of these days I'll embarrass Dad and bring up an old picture of Wing Chow and Dad working on Epcot. But that's for another day. Okay, so let's get going. Again, I would love to talk about more people, but, you know, we got a show to do, people. So before I get into it, let me pop over to chat. I see some awesome people. Theme Park Giant. Hey, Dad, hope you're doing fantastic. Thanks for being here. AJC Magic. Amy, hope you're doing fantastic. Thank you for being here. I'm so grateful for you guys. Let's see. I said hi to Trish. I said hi to Dame. I think I got everybody. If I missed you, just keep chatting. I'll find you eventually. Okay, so why are we talking about castles tonight? Well, when Disney dreamed of Disneyland, he knew it needed some kind of a beating heart. You know, it needed a symbol that would instantly tell guests that they were stepping into a new type of world, a world of fantasy. And for Walt, that symbol was a castle. And it wasn't just any castle. You know, it's easy to just build walls and call it a castle. But he wanted a castle that would distill centuries of fairy tales, European architecture, into something really approachable and magical, and more than anything, really uniquely Disney. He gave this concept a very unique name that stuck to this day. He called it a weenie. And a weenie is a visual magnet that really draws your eyes towards it and draws yourself towards it. And it guides you deeper into the park. But it was much more than that. It was more than a landmark. The castle was kind of a promise. It told guests, okay, folks, here you leave today, and you're going to enter the world of yesterday, tomorrow, and fantasy. Walt insisted on a castle because he understood that imagination needs this kind of a big stage. And the castle would forever be that stage for fireworks, for storytelling, and dreams. And ultimately, even the company itself, as we'll find out. The castle became the key fundamental icon of not only the parks, but the company as a whole. Now, every park has its own heartbeat and its own style, of course. And that heartbeat, of course, is the castle. It's the first thing you see as you step on a main street. As I've encouraged you to share in chat, we all remember that first view. You walk onto Main Street and you see that giant or small, as the case may be, castle. And it's that first look you see that you remember forever. Alternatively, it's also the last thing you see as you leave. The castle isn't just a building, it's an emotional anchor for the park. Families orient themselves around it. Children run towards it. And so many generations have taken photos in front of it. These castles are the most photographed structures in the world, quite literally. It's a backdrop for proposals, reunions, fireworks. It's much more than stone. The castle is kind of a promise that dreams themselves can be made real. And that's why it's at the center of the park. Not just of the park, but the center of our memories too. Now we have to start with the original. The story of Disneyland's original castle, it first started in August 5th, 1953, when Marvin Davis, as we've talked about, he sketched its first design, and he drew inspiration from a very famous castle called, here we go, Neuschwanstein Castle. How'd I do, Kate? Neuschwanstein is in Bavaria, Germany, and I'll show you a picture of what that looks like in a bit. Fred Jorger then built the first model based on Davis's plans, and he gave Walt and his team a very tangible vision of the park centerpiece. Now, although Neuschwanstein was a starting point for this castle, it quickly evolved through collaboration, and it really set the stage for an icon that would define Disneyland all up. Now, Herb Ryman's famous aerial rendering that you've all seen, I'll show you in a second, it wasn't created in isolation. There are famous stories about Herbie working in isolation over a weekend. Not necessarily. And I'm grateful for folks who have contributed some of these tidbits and stories to me offline. While this synthesized work already done by other Imagineers like Marvin Davis, Dale Hennessy, Bill Martin, and Bruce Bushman, Herbie's role was to make their ideas comprehensible for Walt's pitch. Remember, at the time, Walt was trying to convey this crazy idea he had of a theme park in Anaheim. So the drawing took just a few days. He had to have it quickly to pitch the park. Now, Ryman was vocal about avoiding a direct copy of Neuschwanstein. And one thing he did that was interesting was that he took the original roof of the one in Germany and he turned it so that it softened the resemblance a little bit. And he showed it to Walt. Walt turns out that he loved it and he preferred the change. So this sketch that I'm about to show you became a very powerful storytelling tool in addition to just a blueprint. And this is it. You've probably seen it all before. In all its glory, let me show you. You don't need to see my face here. Let's focus on that beauty. This is just a gorgeous, gorgeous print, and you could see it in various museums. You could see it in Disneyland and so forth. So this was it. This was the design that Herbie came up with. And as you can see, the castle is loud and proud. It's right there in the center of the park, and it draws your eye to it just as you would be in the park, looking at the park as well. So like I mentioned, the ideas for these castles came from elsewhere. Now, while Neuschwanstein Castle, which you can see here, if you squint, you can see some resemblances, right? While this castle inspired Martin Davis's early design, Walt and his team, he really wanted something a little bit more original as well. Well, set designer Roland Hill, who was a friend of Walt's from World War I, he was brought in to reimagine the castle with French influences. Hill personally drafted most of the final construction drawings, so he blended European inspiration with Disney's unique vision. And his artistry brought to the table, and it ensures that Sleeping Beauty Castle would stand apart, not just as a replica of Neuschwanstein, but as a fairy tale brought to life. And we've got to talk about Fred a little bit. Fred was one of Walt Disney's original Imagineers, and his specialty was model making. He built the scale models that guided the construction of many things in the park, including the castle, and it helped Imagineers visualize proportions, force perspective, and all kinds of architectural details before a single stone was laid. And I do need to point out that good model making is somewhat of a lost art. If any of you have been to Universal in Florida, if you wander into the Epic Universe Preview Center, they have, I don't know if it's still there, they have a beautiful, gorgeous model of the whole park. And it's a bit of a lost art. Everything's digital these days. So when you see an actual model in person, it kind of takes your breath away. Now, Fred's artistry extended far beyond castles. We've talked about his rock work and things like that. And he established model making as kind of a key cornerstone of Imagineering, a tradition that continues today with physical and digital models. But, we all miss the physical models. His legacy reminds us that every Disney icon begins as a small miniature dream before becoming reality. So we got to take our hat off to him. Popping over to chat, I see some good people. Hey, Jason Thibodeau's in the house. Hello, Jason. Hope you're doing great. Hey, again, just as a reminder, if you haven't hit like, please hit like, subscribe, and share out the stream. Now, we've mentioned this word before, a weenie. Let's talk a little bit more about it, because who doesn't like to talk about weenies? Walt Disney had a very quirky term, like I pointed out, for the design elements that pulled people deeper into the park, and he called them this word, a weenie. Well, a weenie is a visual magnet. It's something that makes you curious and makes you want to walk towards it and check it out. Well, the castle, of course, is the ultimate weenie. From the moment you walk into Main Street, it rises in the distance, depending on which park you're in, and it draws you forward towards the castle. And Walt believed guests should always have some kind of a goal in sight, something that guided you without the need for signs or directions. You wander around the park and we kind of take this for granted, but you don't see signs that say Frontierland that way or Tomorrowland that way. This is all done visually, and it's part of the visual storytelling. The castle was one of those goals. And it was the anchor of Disneyland's hub and spoke layout, which was a phenomenal idea. We'll have another episode, I'm sure, talking about that. And it became the model for almost every Disney park that followed. Other attractions, of course, became weenies too. The Matterhorn was one, Space Mountain was one, but none really ever matched the castle's power to really inspire and invite you inward. Oh, here's some great pictures. I threw some pictures in here of Walt as the construction of the castle was ongoing. If you haven't seen these, Walt Disney Family Museum has some wonderful pictures of these. Here's one of the castle being constructed. It's great to see it without any water in there. Now, I lied a little bit when I said we wouldn't be talking about attractions tonight, because it turns out that there is one attraction hidden in one of these castles. Maybe not so hidden, but Sleeping Beauty's castle in Disneyland actually has an attraction inside it. Now, it's not just something to admire from the outside. You can actually walk inside. So in 1957, a couple of years after the park opened, they added the Sleeping Beauty walkthrough, and it transformed the castle into a storytelling space. So as a guest, you can climb staircases and wander corridors inside, and what you'll see are different dioramas, and that brings the animated film Sleeping Beauty to life. It used a lot of the original designs from the designer of the film, Ivan Earl. And over the years, the walkthrough has been reinvented. We'll talk about that in a bit. Most recently, of course, in 2008 with modern lighting and effects. But what makes it special is that the castle doesn't just symbolize fantasy. It lets you live it by inviting you in and experiencing the story. So this truly bridges a world of animation and reality in a very special way that we haven't seen in other theme parks. If any of you have been through the castle in Disneyland, mention in chat that you have and tell us what you think. Now, I've mentioned the evolution of this walkthrough, and it has a fascinating history. So when it first opened in 1957, the dioramas reflected Ivan Earl's bold, stylized artwork from the film itself, which was very angular, colorful, if you remember Sleeping Beauty. And it was truly unlike anything else in animation. Well, in 1977, the walkthrough was redesigned with a little bit more traditional fairy tale look, and it softened the style to match guest expectations. Some of these dioramas turned into kind of 3D environments and I'll show you a picture. These resemble very closely the type of scenes that you see outside the Emporium on Main Street. Anyway, after 9/11 happened in 2001, the walkthrough closed for security reasons, but in 2008, it returned with brand new life. There were fiber optics, projections, and modern lighting bringing the story to life. Our friends Tony Baxter, Chris Merritt, they both worked on this reinvention of the attraction. So today's version strikes a balance between the two. It honors Earl's original vision while embracing new technology, and it ensures that Sleeping Beauty's story continues to enchant new generations. Here's a little before after picture that you can see. So you can see what happened after 77. You know, you look at the picture on the left, and it's a very cute diorama. There's nothing wrong with it at all. But you kind of get the sense that it might also be something you would see outside the Emporium in Main Street. Well, now look on the right, you know, you have these bold colors, you have these angular features, and it just really kind of takes your breath away in a brand new way. So if you're ever in Disneyland, I'd encourage you, definitely don't pass up the chance to wander around inside the castle. It's a piece of art. Now we have to move to Florida. Of course, the favorite castle for so many of my friends and so many people in chat, Cinderella Castle. So Cinderella Castle at Disney World was born from sketches Herb Ryman made around the time of Walt's passing, although it's unlikely that Walt ever saw them because of his death. Well, those sketches were handed to WED architectural designer Ted Rich, who was a longtime colleague of Ryman's from their MGM days, and he refined them into the castle that we know today. Bill Martin was a named art director, but Rich was recognized as the designer. Drawing inspiration from the Loire Valley Chateau in France, the castle became Florida's grand statement, a soaring, ornate centerpiece that really expanded on Anaheim's original icon. And you couldn't get more different between the, I'll call it quaint, you know, the quaint version of Sleeping Beauty's castle. It's beautiful as all heck. And you have this giant, enormous soaring castle in Florida. I mean, you couldn't get any different. Well, Mr. Hench, of course, we need to tip our hat as well. While Ted Rich, of course, shaped the castle design, John Hench, he refined its artistic presence, and he emphasized grandeur and scale, and it made sure that the castle matched the true greatness of this new park that was intended to be every bit as bigger as the original park was. He helped define the castle not just as an icon, but as an actual functional hub. There were dining spaces inside, storytelling spaces, and even a bedroom, as we'll see in a second. Hench's touch elevated the castle into a work of art, blending architectural ambition with Disney signature storytelling. Now we need to talk about the epic mosaic work. I've seen some comments in the chat about the mosaic, and there we go, Neil. Thanks. These mosaics, anybody who's been to Florida probably have walked through the mosaics, assuming you haven't been with a kid who's running, 50 miles an hour into Fantasyland. You'll probably have noticed these gorgeous mosaics on either side. And these mosaics are epic. They were designed, of course, like I mentioned, by Dorothea Redmond, famed Disney artist. Now, designed by Redmond, these mosaics were executed by artisans, and these artisans were led by Hans Joachim Scharf. Hope I didn't butcher the name. And there are 5 towering panels that tell the story of Cinderella in over 1 million pieces of glass, fused stone, silver, and 14-karat gold. Now, these mosaics, they shimmer with all kinds of beauty, and they blended medieval artistry with Disney storytelling. And for many of us, when we step into the castle, we step into this gallery of kind of living fairy tales. And it's truly a testament to their ambition to make art and magic inseparable. In fact, there's a funny little Easter egg here. If you notice this particular mosaic, some people have said that the gentleman standing up on the right resembles John Hench, and the gentleman in teal or blue kneeling down resembles Herbie Ryman. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's a fun rumor. Let me pop over to chat. I see some friends. Izzo's Place. Hello, Izzo's Place. Hope you're doing great. And I see Kate E. Thank you, Kate, for being here. I appreciate it. Here's a wonderful picture. I wanted to show some more. Let me get rid of myself. You don't need to see me. This is a picture of the castle, or at least its foundation being placed in Florida. What I love to see about this picture is, of course, the foundation, of course, is epic, but you also see the utilidors. The utilidors, of course, are corridors or structures underneath the theme park. Excuse me. As you may or may not know, when you're in the Magic Kingdom in Florida, you're not on the first floor. You're actually on the second floor. And underneath you is all these winding passageways called the utilidors, where you get to see these utilidors being constructed with the foundation of the castle. And here's another picture of the foundation being constructed. Hat tip to D23 for these awesome pictures. And you can see the ceiling of the utilidor being covered. And of course, in front of the castle, you start to see dirt being applied. Picture of the castle being built. You know, it's hard to believe, but, you know, it was just a big old thing of steel and wood at one point. And I love this picture. You get to see one of the spires being carried along by a crane. Let's talk about Cinderella Castle as a stage, huh? So it was never meant to just be a backdrop in Florida. It was designed as a very functional space. In addition, as a stage. Here, I'll put myself back on so you can see me. Now, from the very earliest days of Disney World, this castle has hosted all kinds of shows and parades and character appearances, turning its forecourt into a theater, the Theater of Dreams. And at night, it becomes a centerpiece, of course, for fireworks spectaculars with projection mapping, transforming all of its towers into living canvases. Of course, inside, like we mentioned, there are experiences like Cinderella's Royal Table that allows you to step directly into the fairy tale. So every performance, every firework, all kinds of projections really reinforce this role as the emotional centerpiece of the Magic Kingdom. And of course, we all know it as a place where fantasy isn't just seen, it's lived, and you can live it through all these different ways. We got to talk about the fireworks, right? Can't talk about the castles without the fireworks. Now, from the very beginning, early days, Disney, of course, knew that fireworks would complete the magic of his parks. So in '56, there is a very famous show called Fantasy in the Sky, debuting at Disneyland. And this castle became the perfect backdrop. You know, it was a stage that transformed into bursts of light and color. Now, of course, over the decades, fireworks evolved and they turned into full multimedia spectaculars, blending music, projections, lasers, and all kinds of pyrotechnics. And each park's castle became the centerpiece of this show. You know, when you go and watch the fireworks, of course, you can enjoy the fireworks from anywhere in the park. But where do most people like to watch it? They like to watch it from Main Street, where this castle is front and center. So from Wishes to Happily Ever After or Disneyland Forever, all of these shows feature the castle as a key main character. Now, of course, in recent years, they've embraced projection mapping, which is an amazing technology which turns castles into canvases. And they get to tell all kinds of new stories using this technology. So these shows aren't just entertainment. They're in many ways the emotional climax of a Disney day. We all know that feeling at the end of the day. Your heart swells, you watch these fireworks. And it's a moment when the castle itself almost becomes alive like a character. Now, the castle isn't just architecture. That's one thing I want you to take away from tonight. It's a symbol. For Disney, it represents a promise that dreams can come true. For guests, it becomes a true backdrop to many kinds of life's milestones, whether they're weddings, proposals, family photos. Like I mentioned, it's the most photographed structure in the world. I think it still holds that record. Now, the castle's image, of course, is everywhere. It's in film logos, it's in marketing and branding. It embodies the very heart of the theme parks that we know and love. And it inspires awe in children who see it for the first time. And of course, nostalgia in those of us who remember our own childhood visits. It's much more than stone and spires. It's a symbol of dreams fulfilled, and it's a reminder of Walt's vision that magic can be made real. Now, the one in Florida has a very, very, very special feature. Hidden within Cinderella Castle is one of Disney World's most exclusive spaces, and it's called the Cinderella Castle Suite. Originally, it was conceived as a private apartment for Walt Disney. Of course, it was never completed during his lifetime. But in 2006, during the Year of a Million Dreams, they transformed the space into a lavish suite inspired by Cinderella. It has mosaics, it has stained glass, it has ornate furnishings. It offers a royal bedchamber, a jacuzzi, and concierge service. Now, what's special about the suite is that you can't book it for any price. It's reserved for special promotions and special invitations, making it one of Disney's most magical secrets. If you've ever had a chance to stay in this suite, let me know in chat because I'll pepper you with questions. But it's a very special thing. I have a video from, I think it's GMA, Good Morning America. I'd love to show. So let's take a look at this very special suite.
Cinderella Castle Suite is 660 square feet of wow. The royal bedchamber is designed to sleep 4 individuals. Then, of course, here in the parlor, we have an extensive array of items that are designed to entertain that's controlled through your magic wand. So the powder room is a very impressive room in and of itself. You can change the blue lights to pink lights. We do have a Starfield effect over the top. Cinderella Castle Suite is a very special place. It's the most exclusive address here at Walt Disney World. It is something that no amount of money can buy. It's a very, very special experience.
Goodbye!
No, wait.
This particular clock doesn't ever quite make it to midnight. It's always 11:59, which does symbolize something here for us, and that's here in the Castle Suite, the magic doesn't ever end. It's an amazing space. It's a place that's been designed specifically for them to have just the time of their lives, a once-in-a-lifetime experience for everyone.
Yep, pretty special space. Now let's start moving overseas a little bit and talk about the overseas castle, because these castles have their own very unique characters as well. Let's start with Tokyo. Tokyo Disneyland opened in 1983, and Imagineers faced a very unique challenge now: how to introduce Disney's magic to a very unique culture in Japan. So their solution that they adopted was familiarity. The park centerpiece was a very nearly duplicate of Florida's Cinderella Castle. It stands 168 feet tall, and it's, of course, instantly recognizable. But this castle had its own twist. Inside was the Cinderella Castle Mystery Tour, and this was also a walkthrough attraction that took guests through dark fantasy scenes, even facing Maleficent herself. Now, the tour ran for 2 decades, from 1986 to 2006, before closing. And today the castle serves much like its Florida counterpart. It's a majestic backdrop for shows, fireworks, and memories. But for many fans who have seen it, the Mystery Tour remains one of its most legendary features. Let's move on to Paris. Now, when designing Disneyland Paris, they also had a very unique challenge to face. We're in France, and France already had some of the world's most famous castles. So how can you possibly top those? It's almost like building a theme park about California in California. Oh, sorry. Anyway, many of these castles that existed in France, especially in the Loire Valley, were medieval structures, and they refurbished in the 15th and 16th centuries into French Renaissance style, blending Gothic and other kinds of influences. Now, because these castles were so familiar to school children and tourists, Disney truly needed something different. Now, their solution was to lean into fantasy, creating a whimsical storybook castle that stood apart from reality while still honoring tradition. The result, of course, was a fairy tale twist on France's own heritage. And now we get to honor one of the friends of the channel, Mr. Tom Morris. I know some of you met Tom, and he's a great guy. He actually helped out with some of the show. So Tom, why are we talking about Tom? Tom guided the design of Disneyland Paris's castle with deep awareness of its cultural setting. He studied the French architecture, knowing that local audiences were already steeped in this tradition. Now, rather than replicate those castles, he exaggerated their features: taller spires, whimsical proportions, ornate detailing, to really create something dreamlike. Gothic and Renaissance motifs were integrated, but they were also transformed into fantasy. Now, the result was a castle, and it felt familiar, but also fantastical. And he made sure that it resonated not only with European audiences, but it also remained unmistakably Disney. And that's an amazing sweet spot to hit. So we got to take our hat off to Tom for that. Now, underneath the castle was a very special feature. Underneath the castle was a dragon, of all things. And, you know, the name of the castle is Le Château de la Belle au Bois Dormant, but it had a dragon underneath. So you can actually go underneath the castle and see this dragon animatronic. I think, TPG Dad pointed this out. The dragon is pretty cool. So if you ever find yourself in Disneyland Paris, you have to go check it out. Oh, sorry. Too many slides there. Okay, let's move on to Hong Kong. Now, when Hong Kong opened in 2005, those of you who have been to the park realize it's a relatively small park. So, as a result, they chose the centerpiece. Just like Tokyo chose Cinderella's castle, Hong Kong chose Disneyland's castle. So they created a near duplicate of Sleeping Beauty's castle. And this castle was only 77 feet tall. It was far smaller than the grand castles that they had created in Florida and in Paris. This choice reflected cost efficiency and a desire to echo the original Disneyland. However, many guests found it quite underwhelming. They were used to these big, huge castles now. So, unlike Anaheim's, in addition, Hong Kong's castle had no walkthrough attraction. So it was mainly a backdrop for shows and fireworks. So they realized, okay, let's go back to the drawing board a little bit. And so what they did was that they completely redid their castle. In 2020, it underwent a dramatic transformation, and it became a brand new castle called the Castle of Magical Dreams. This was a new icon that for the first time celebrates multiple Disney princesses, not just one princess. So what began as a modest replica evolved into something uniquely Hong Kong's own. Like I mentioned, in 2020, they reintroduced the centerpiece, and gone was the modest Sleeping Beauty's castle. This design celebrated 12 Disney princesses and heroines. Each tower and spire had a unique feature that reflects a different story. For example, Jasmine's domes to Mulan's motifs, and so forth. And it created a castle that blended cultures and tales into one unified symbol. Now, it's more than just architecture. Again, it's a symbol, and it represents inclusivity in modern Disney storytelling. It really reinvented the identity of the whole park, and it gave the park a castle that's not just a replica, but something truly unique to the park itself. And last but not least, Shanghai. Shanghai is notable for having the tallest Disney park in the world. Yes, even taller than Florida. Shanghai Disneyland's Enchanted Storybook Castle. It was designed by Doug Rogers and Coulter Winn, and it stands as the largest Disney castle ever constructed. Now, unlike its predecessors, this castle doesn't represent a single princess. Remember, at the time, this was before Hong Kong redid their castle. And like Hong Kong's newer castle, it celebrates all of them, and it made it just as much a symbol of inclusivity as the other ones did. Inside the castle, you can explore multiple levels, and there's dining, retail, and interactive experiences. And there's even other attractions like Voyage to the Crystal Grotto. Its architecture blends Chinese cultural motifs together with Disney fantasy, ensuring that Shanghai centerpiece feels both locally resonant and globally grand, which was a feature of the park as a whole. We talked about this a little bit in previous episodes, how Shanghai needs to have its own identity and its own features. Must talk about this gentleman, friend of the family, Mr. Wing Chao. Wing Chao's leadership was instrumental in shaping Shanghai's centerpiece. At 197 feet tall, not Wing, but the castle, it's the largest castle ever built, and it's the only one to represent all princesses. Until at the time. But what makes it really unique is its cultural symbolism. They incorporated Chinese motifs, for example, a golden peony, jade-inspired details, and feng shui principles. Inside, the guests discover attractions and all kinds of immersive storytelling inside. So under his guidance and design, this castle became Disney's boldest architectural statement. It's authentically Disney, but deeply connected to Chinese culture in a way that only Imagineering could do. Now let's take a step back and take a look at the different castles across the globe. Across the globe, castles tell all kinds of different stories. Anaheim's Sleeping Beauty's castle, of course, is small and intimate. It's a storybook charm that really set the template for all the other castles. Florida's castle is grand and towering, a statement of scale for Disney World. Tokyo echoed Florida's design, but added the unique mystery tour inside. Paris reimagined the concept entirely, leaning into fantasy with ornate spires and even a dragon in the dungeon. Hong Kong began with a modest replica, but reinvented itself with the Castle of Magical Dreams, celebrating 12 heroines. And Shanghai pushed the boundaries even further, creating the tallest and most complex castle ever built, blending all princesses with Chinese cultural motifs. So together we take a step back and we can see how Disney adapts its icons to different cultures, different audiences, and different ambitions. We gotta talk about this technology. It really changed the game. In the 2010s, Disney introduced projection mapping, and these castles truly became living canvases. Using this technology, animations, colors, and textures were able to wrap seamlessly around the castles. So at night, these structures became entirely different castles with completely different color schemes, transforming stone into story. And the shows took advantage of this. Shows like Celebrate the Magic, Disney Dreams, and of course Happily Ever After pioneered it, turning these castles into stages where battles rage, fairy tales unfold, and all kinds of worlds come to life. Now, of course, combined with fireworks, it adds narrative depth and visual immersion, ensuring the castle isn't just a backdrop, it becomes a character in the show. And this innovation reinforces the castle's role as a living, evolving centerpiece of Disney's magic. So we got to take our hat off to that technology. Some of the technologies introduced don't radically change the game, but this one did. Of course, we have to talk about the castle as a photo spot. It's not just a photo spot. It's the ultimate photo spot, right? Families pose in front of it for portraits. Couples propose in front of it and celebrate weddings, and countless milestones are captured, of course. These images tie personal stories to Disney's icon. So it's not just a symbol of fantasy, but of lived memories. Disney embraces it in its marketing, and they know that this castle is the most photographed structure in the parks. And with social media, this role has only grown. Millions of photos are shared daily, and it reinforces this idea of the castle as both a global icon and a deeply personal memory maker. Now we must talk about this. I'm sorry, but we must. Can't talk about the castle without this. So in 96, Walt Disney World had an interesting experiment. Well, they marked their 25th anniversary, which is normally a big deal. Well, what they decided to do was to transform the castle in a way no one could ever forget. Cinderella's castle was turned into a giant pink birthday cake, and it was covered in 400 gallons of pink paint, topped with 26 candles, and it was decorated with candy-colored swirls and gumdrops. Now, this overlay was meant to be whimsical and celebratory, but reactions were super mixed. Some guests loved the playful design, and others felt it really spoiled the elegance of the castle. The birthday cake castle remains one of the most infamous overlays in all of Disney's history. It's controversial, it's unforgettable, and it's a reminder that even icons like the castle can be reimagined in bold ways, for better or for worse. I see some comments, some people who have been there. And Karen is one of the people who didn't like it, and that's totally cool. But like I say, it spawned some interesting opinions. Let's put it that way. If you've ever seen the birthday cake, or if you have any opinions of it, feel free to mention it in chat. It was bold, that's for sure. During holidays, the castle takes on a new personality. In Halloween, there's eerie lighting and villainous projections, of course, that we just saw. But at Christmas, they truly sparkle with thousands of lights, shimmering icicles, and festive decor. It truly becomes a centerpiece of holiday magic in the parks. Now, these overlays, unlike the birthday cake, often combine projection mapping, fireworks, and other performances, so it feels fresh and alive. And by adapting to the seasons, it proves that it's not just an icon that stays the same way throughout the year. It's a stage for not only the seasons, but also the stories that Disney's trying to tell as well. And of course, the castle became an icon in many other ways as well. Beyond the parks, the castle became Disney's ultimate marketing icon. You can't see anything Disney now without some illustration of the castle being there. Since the 80s, it's appeared before nearly every Disney film, and it evolved from a simple 2D sketch to elaborate CGI reimagings. For example, you see the one here, took that screenshot from Tron Legacy. Each variation reinforces the brand's identity, and it instantly signals, okay, you're in for some Disney magic whenever you see this icon. Marketing campaigns also leaned heavily on castle imagery, and it connected the parks and films under one symbol. So more than just fantasy, it conveys trust and tradition, and it makes it one of the most powerful brand icons in entertainment history. And of course, it's a gateway as well. It's not just a symbol. In most Disney parks, the castle itself serves as the central entrance into Fantasyland, and it guides guests from the hub into the realm of fairy tales. When you pass through its archways, visitors leave the real world behind, and you enter all kinds of storybook village scenes filled with classic attractions. Inside, there are walkthroughs, shops, and dining experiences in various castles that add to the sense of discovery. Now, Walt envisioned the castle as both an icon and a functional gateway, and that vision, of course, continues today. When you step through the castle, it's more than just a transition. It's a moment you cross into another world, and it really solidifies that concept of immersion that we talk so much about on this show. So we mustn't underestimate the power of the castle as a gateway into a new world. Much like the proscenium of a movie or of a theater is, the castle frames that entrance. By the way, there's a funny anecdote. I believe it was Magic Kingdom. When they were building Magic Kingdom, Roy Disney, he lined up on Main Street and he looked through the castle and he saw, you look through the castle, you see the carousel through the gates, right? Well, the carousel was a few feet off center. And he had the whole carousel picked up and moved so that it was dead center in the castle view. And that's how important this gateway is to the overall theme and the overall feel of entering not only Fantasyland, but the park as a whole. Of course, we have to talk about the tricks too. Disney's castles are full of these wonderful hidden architectural tricks. Imagineers rely on forced perspective, something we've talked about before many times. What they do is that they scale upper levels so that they're smaller than the lower ones to make the castles appear taller and grander than they actually are. So the windows are physically shorter or smaller, the spires taper, and the roof lines angle just so, and it fools the eye into perceiving impossible height. There are color choices and shadow play tricks as well that adds depth. These architectural sleights of hand balance spectacle with practicality, and it makes sure that the castles remain walkable and structurally sound as well. It's a perfect example of Disney's philosophy, blending art, illusion, and engineering together to create magic. Disney's castles are much more than just icons. Again, that's the one thing I want you to take away from tonight. They're storytelling devices. Each one embodies a central theme of happily ever after, and it serves as the anchor for adventures and fairy tales. Inside, there are walkthroughs and dioramas that bring specific stories to life, and projection shows and seasonal overlays transform the stage or transform the castle into a kind of a stage for evolving narratives. Now, for guests, stepping through the castle means stepping into the story itself. Walt, of course, envisioned the park as a living narrative, and the castle remains its most powerful storytelling symbol. From Anaheim to Shanghai, Disney castles have evolved, of course, in scale, design, and cultural meaning, but they all carry the same promise at the end of the day. Walt Disney envisioned the castle as the centerpiece of its parks, a symbol of magic and happily ever after. Over time, these castles have become icons of memory making, branding, and storytelling, adapting through overlays, technology, and cultural influences. These castles inspire nostalgia for generations past while welcoming new audiences into the world of fantasy. It's much more than architecture. It's much more than spires. The castle is truly Disney's eternal symbol, kind of beacon of wonder that continues to shine across the globe, no matter which theme park you're in. So like I mentioned, we're not going to be doing our normal analysis because there's not one attraction. We could do it for the walkthrough, but I figure we'll save our ammunition for another night. Trivia. At the beginning of the show, I asked this question: which Disney castle was designed by Ted Rich? And not by Ryman himself, even though Ryman's concept sketches were widely published. And like I mentioned, it's Cinderella Castle. Now, we are at episode 24. You've suffered through 24 hours of stories from me. That's amazing. So give yourself a clap. Thank you for hopefully enjoying all these 24 hours. Now, what I like to do is to have monumental kind of iconic attractions at big milestone episodes. Next week, we're going to have our 25th episode. Can you believe it? 25. There's one attraction that people have asked me over and over again, John, when are you going to cover Pirates of the Caribbean? So I think it's time. So for episode 25, we're going to delve into pirates. There's probably so much history and so many stories about this famous attraction. I don't know, frankly, if we'll be able to get into it in 1 hour. If I can't, I'll turn this into a two-parter if I have to, because this attraction has so many stories and so many legends behind it. I don't know if we'll be able to cram it into 1 hour, but we'll see. We'll try our best. So I hope you join me for that next week. We're going to have a lot of fun. And yeah, I see Trish in the chat. I know you're excited. So we're going to have a lot of fun next week. So come back for that. And I'll leave you with our usual poem by Ray. Gather around the next great campfire. Let us seek and know and understand and dream a new book, a new instruction book to fly great spaceship Earth through the uncharted seas of the future world. Lock in a dream that is your own. Find what truth is in your blood and beat a path from there to here to there. Your life is yours to own and be. The world is yours to shape and change. The stars are yours as just reward. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Tonight was a little bit unusual, but I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a few things. And as I mentioned at the outset of the show, there's a lot of history just behind the Disney castles. So I hope you enjoyed it. We'll mix and match some of these concepts in the future. But for now, I hope you come back next week and we'll delve into the wonderful world of the Pirates of the Caribbean. So I'll see you then. I hope you have a great week, folks.